Hello and welcome to this video. Here we're going to review the custom data types for a Lightning Web Component data table, and we'll see how to create a simple one so that you can get an understanding of how to do it, when it's useful, and that way you can go ahead and start experimenting with that. So as you can see here on the right side of my screen, I have my developer org, and I already have this data table. So if you pay attention here, this type column looks really weird. It's not something that you usually see on a data table because it has background color, it has custom font color, and so this is pretty much what custom data types allow you to do. These are very useful when, for example, you have a data table and you want to add a column with something that is not supported out of the box. For example, here we have text, here we have a phone number, we can use URLs, we can use pretty much whatever it's on the Lightning Component Library documentation. But what if we want to use a combo box? Or what if we want to render a custom image and a small icon? Or what if we want to apply CSS to the text conditionally to display, for example, this one is going to be green if this says sample, or this one is going to be yellow? That's exactly when the custom data types come into play. So in this case, as you can see, I already have it here. So let's go ahead and cover all that it's needed to get it to work like this. So the first thing is you need to create a parent component. In that case, that will be the one that I have here on my screen, the one called sample data table HTML. So your parent component, when you create it, you need to think of it as if you were just going to create a component with a table on it. So just like that, as you can see, I have here my method to get accounts data, which is the one that we're displaying here. It's just an Apex controller that it's wired here to grab some data. Just below that, we have the regular columns. If you go to the Lightning Web Component data table for the official documentation, you can see and find some examples for this in case you're not very familiar or you don't really remember it right now. So you can just use these as a base. And then, as you can see, that's pretty much it. It just has the wire method to get the data, and then it has the columns. And if we go to the HTML, we can see that we have the table. Now, if we take a look here, you will see we can go ahead and see there is already a difference. By default, when you use a data table, you're gonna have like this. It's gonna say Lightning data table, just like this, right? So this is one of the main differences or requirements for you to use custom data types. So let me go ahead and remove it so that you can take a look at how it looks once we convert it back to a regular data table. Let's deploy this and you will see now. Oh, and let's also remove this. Okay, and there you go. As you can see, we didn't even need to deploy this. So you can see that this has now, it's still displaying data, but since this is a regular data table with no custom data types, now the type column that we had just went away. So, okay. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you need to do is you need to create a new Lightning component. And you go ahead and name this some way that will be easily identifiable for you. In my case, I name it custom account table because what this component is going to represent is we are going to pretty much create our own custom data table. So if you're going to use it for contacts or cases, I recommend you to name it in a way that you can easily identify what it is for. For example, custom contacts data table or something like that. Once you have your component here, you can leave the HTML without any edits to it. You can also just leave the meta file XML the way it is. You don't need to change anything on it. And then for the JavaScript, for this one, the first thing you're going to do here is first add this line of code. the one that says import lightning data table from lightning data table. You can go ahead and also find this on the article. We're gonna use this one instead of the regular one that comes out of box, which is the lightning element, because this component, it's going to be an extension of the data table. Same as with this, go ahead and update the extends and replace the lightning element with lightning data table. It is important to mention that you need to make sure that they are well written. Remember that this is JavaScript, so it's case sensitive, so make sure it is exactly just like this. Once you have this in place, the next thing you need to do is create what is going to be your field. So for that, right click on your component and click where it says new folder. Once you create a folder, which I already have here, you can name it however you want. Again, my recommendation is for you to call it templates or anything that you will prefer. For this case, I name it template, and inside that folder, what we're going to do is place the files for all of our different custom data types. In this case, I did it just for one, but you can, if you're going to use more than one, this is the place where they're going to be located. So once you have your folder, right click on it and hit new file. When you do that, this is going to allow you to create files with any sort of name that you want. So in my case, I wrote it as returntype.html. Then I repeated the step and I created returntype.css. So the HTML, when we open that up, this is going to be the section of code that is going to call whatever is going to be displayed in that column. So if you recall, this was saying example and it had a blue background with white text. So we can see here why it does that, because this HTML file has text example and it's applying some CSS here, which is why I have this second file called CSS returntype.css, where we are specifying what the formatting or styling it's going to be. So in this case, this is a very simple example. If we wanted to do something more complicated, let's say we wanted to create a combo box, then we will need to come here, grab the combo box code, and pretty much do the same that we're doing. Just make sure that we have the HTML here, and then we can also go ahead and try by adding a JavaScript file and see if we can put, for example, if we need to have the unchanged, we can do it that way. Other ways that you can also do this, it's you can create another custom lightning bolt component like you usually do. Create your combo box there, like we're doing right here. Create it there, make sure you have your handler, make sure you have everything in place. And once you have that component, you can import it here by referencing, like for example, combo box, something like this. And that way you can reference your custom component and use all of the methods and things that you have worked on. So to summarize that, here on this HTML, it's where you need to reference whatever will be rendered on your table. So now that we have clarified that, let's go ahead and click on save here. Let's click on save on the return type, and once let's go back to the JavaScript file because we didn't cover this. So now that you have your custom data type here on the templates folder, the next thing we need to do is reference that in our custom account table component. So for that, go ahead and for each of the custom data types that you're going to use, make sure you import them just like I did. Keep in mind again that if you name your folder differently, then you're gonna have to make sure the name here is correct. After you import it on line 2, the next thing you need to do is declare the static custom types. So as you're probably guessing, this is going to be like you're gonna have to add your custom data types here. In this case, I only have this one right now, but if I had more, I can go ahead and put them here. Also, this is where you add the different attributes for your custom data type. For example, if this were to be a combo box, and that combo box is going to receive data from the parent component, then I can go ahead and specify it here. Or if I want to use something like a standard cell layout, then I can put them here. These attributes, you can find them in Salesforce documentation because there are plenty, but these are pretty much used to pass data between your custom table and wherever we're going to place it. So it's very handy to keep it in mind depending on what you want to achieve with them. For now, since this is going to be a very simple text custom data type, we can just leave it as it is and go ahead and hit save. Then go ahead and deploy these to production, or your developer or sandbox playground, whatever. Go ahead and deploy it. Then go again into your sample data table or the parent component, the one we saw at the beginning of the video. So if you see here, now we have custom account table that we created, the template folder, the custom HTML file in it, and the parent component. So let's jump back into the parent component. And now that we have our little table here, we don't really need to do anything special other than replace these regular Lightning data table with the one that we just created. To do that, you pretty much need to reference it here as if you were referencing any other component. So for example, let's go ahead and rename this. So we're gonna put C dash and custom account table. As you can see, we are treating it as if we were embedding a child Lightning Bolt component here. If you're not very familiar with the concept of child Lightning Bolt components, you can go ahead and check Trailhead. There are a few trailheads there that can help you with that. So that's all we're going to change for now. Now let's go ahead and hit save, and let's go back now to the JavaScript. So now that we have our little data table here, the last step that you need to do, it's just use your custom data types. So as you remember or you recall, we had for example, this one can specify the type by using the type attribute. We can use text, phone, URL, so on. So how do we use the custom data types? Well, what you need to do is just go ahead and in the type attribute, put the exact name with capital letters and everything of the custom data type that you just created. For example, or in this case, the one I created is called return type. So I'm gonna leave it like that. Save. Make sure everything is properly saved. Right click on it and deploy it. If I had something else here, like a custom combo box, then that will be the name that I will need to use. And pretty much all you need to do is reference them here. Now, as you can see, we can go ahead and see that our custom data type is now being referenced and it's being displayed here. This is a very simple example, but as I was mentioning, you can go ahead and do this with custom combo boxes. You can do images, anything that fills inside a cell. And for example, even in this one that is very simple, we can do a lot more. We could, for example, go ahead and pass some fields here to these using the type attributes that we were looking at. We can, for example, go ahead and send what's the value of the name, for example. We can pass the name here, then grab it here and check. If name equals something, then display green. If name equals something, then display something. So this is there are lots and lots of possibilities with custom data types. It's all up to your imagination and what you want to achieve. And again, just to close this up, as you're probably seeing, there are tons of things that you might take into consideration. So if you are not sure about, like I was mentioning, what are the data type attributes or what are the ways you can pass data between them, then I recommend you to go ahead and look for the developer guide for Salesforce and search for custom data types, and you are going to find a lot of information here. For example, you can see here what I was mentioning. You can see what are the type attributes, what standard cell layout does. You can see here information about what these are used for, how to pass it, and you can find more complementary information that might come in handy depending on what you want to achieve. So with all that said, I hope this video was useful for you, and thank you very much for watching.